One, two, 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 three, three, three. Roll, roll, roll. So I was born 3/29/90. Yeah, possible concurrence with the Nassau Coliseum, Uniondale, New York. Wake up to find out. Grateful Dead album show album deal. Yeah. So from 1990 to 2003, I was on and off of submarines at Fort Trumbull, USA Navy dock at Fort Trumbull, Connecticut, New London City. And then, from in 2001, I was taken by the Navy as a refugee for hundreds of days. I was missing in action. I was on State Street, St. James Soup Kitchen. I caught the word at Sarge's Comics, and then dipped under the Thames and out to the trench and maybe the Long Island Sound Underwater Research Facility. It was 1994. I was involved with the Children's Museum Nuclear Submersible Studies programs. Yeah, so hoping to one day be a taxi driver. So 1996, Bill Clinton's idea for the civilian use of the Long Island Sound Underwater Research Facility. I was hoping to be a nuclear submersible crew member and or pilot and rent a flat is in an apartment in the Long Island Sound Underwater Research Facility, as well as stay at the then famous house from GDP Underground or Grateful Dead home movies. Brent Midland held me in his arms when I was a baby, and I learned and was bouncing around with the band. Jerry Garcia, Keelan Garcia, Brent Midland, and his daughters, Phil Graham, Melvin Seals, Buddy from New Riders, The Purple Sage, Mickey Hart, Bill Kurzman, and then all this because of a nameless blood type family member, Sugary, marched from the back of the furthest parking lot up to the front of the stage at Giant Stadium in 1987, was pulled on stage, and there was a Bear Stanley's sound assistant from 1987 to 1995. Is a Grateful Dead band member, along with another hundreds sound assistants. So there's that. But I was heading into the so from 2000, say from 2002 or 2003, I was Armageddon preparations. Is I was only 12 years old, yet I was working and learning and working as an emergency service personnel through Junior Coast Guard, Junior Navy, police in Tri-Town. That's a city town, and Manhattan Relief Emergency Response as a sort of a with the submersible parked in the Hudson at one point. So I think that was 2002, towards the end of 2002, to explore the ground zero of after hiding ICBMs and Navy admirals, important political figures from refugees, in case there was a jihad or insurgents in New London, Groton, Connecticut, around the Thames River. So from 2002 to 2008, I was working as the emergency service personnel and prep for military service, along with BSA, Red Cross in high school, and family travels as a formerly famous childhood celebrity, million billionaire. So a little bit of background in family history, and again, that's from 2003 to 2008, or from 1990 to 2008. Little background in family history is six generations back. It was 1790 A.D. On my dad's side, if you look at it like men's side down, following men, it's Gunsmith Jones Carlson immigrated from Sweden in 1790 A.D., who was at Ellis Isle and married a Mohegan woman. They made Tool, who made Werner, who made Silva. And Silva's story was he traveled on a nuclear submersible from New London, Thames River, all the way to China and then back again. He got the Congressional Medal of Honor and stayed in the President's Rolodex for the next half century, as well as in the Navy. So that he was my primary tutor in submersible studies from 1990 to 2003, and Silva made Ricky, which made Drew. They said my Swedish name would be Afa because it sounds better than the biblical name Andrew. Um, from 2008, I got a head injury in New York City. I was working as an NYPD or an NYPD explorer, and my mission was to detain terrorists away from a possible fertilizer bomb, and bring them back to the precincts in one piece. I guess they didn't mention in one piece is that I wound up with a head injury from a bullet, and so that started my medicinal program in the end of August 2008. They started me off as nurse surgeries and ICUs and things. It was a maximum strength adult dosage risperidone, 8 milligrams and then that jumped up to 12 milligrams every 12 hours. For 2 years, it was 12 milligrams every 12 hours consecutively, with a 30 milligram injectable once a week administered. So for 3,600 consecutive days, I was on a maximum adult strength dosage of risperidone, and now it's day 4,360. I'm still on heavy pharmaceutical high tech medications, or high tech technologies of the medicinal source, etc. Farms of source prescription. So up and at it every 24 hours to pull at least a fortnight shift. It usually winds up to be between 12 and 16 hours. And is a maximum of 72 hours generally before I wind up falling asleep. And that was 15 minutes away from the Fort Trumbull Nuclear Submarine Parking Spot, Fort Trumbull, Connecticut State Park, Fort Trumbull, New London City, USA, hopefully. Again, between 2009 and 2012, I was told I was being tortured as a prisoner of war because of my experiences. But randomly, for between 2009 and 2012, I was being tortured and perhaps brought in as a prisoner of war to the Long Island Sound underwater research facility due to my learnings with former Navy admiral. I was possibly privy to military secrets, and it was supposed to be some sort of terrorists or things. As if the World War III was ever a World War III, or there was ever a war on the homeland. In 2022, I'm going to be issued a new state ID, and the local military and military liaisons and representative wanted to get me into the Veterans Association so I could get a little American flag on my state ID, pay me $3,500 a month for the rest of my life because of my survival in the vicinity of the Groton Navy, or New London Groton Navy, and Coast Guard between the years 2001 and present day. And currently, I sit up 15 minutes further from the 15-minute trek to Fort Trumbull Nuclear Submersible Parking Spot, Fort Trumbull, Connecticut, Fort Trumbull, New London City. Um, and I was just going over a little bit of a life story. So there was lineage on the male side, and then a neat fact was my great grandfather Werner adopted a slave that was born in 1898. She had a collar. She was chastised at birth, and then she was adopted. And she lived from 1898 to 2006, and I lived with her from 1990 to 2006. Another neat fact, on my mother's side, there was Phoebe Hoffman. Albert Hoffman's first cousin is my great grandmother. Then she was born in 1908 Switzerland, and she lived with Albert Hoffman in the same household, or maybe one house over, in the same commune in Switzerland. They knew each other as if they were brother and sister. And they stayed in touch from her birth in 1908 to 2008 when she passed away. And I stayed in touch with them from 1990 till 2008. It was Phoebe's great grandson, so Albert Hoffman's great grandson as well is what he'd consider me. Now, as far as the Hoffman family in the USA is concerned, there's me, my mom, my Grammy. My Grammy has a sister, and my mom has a sister, and then there's my brother. My Grammy's sister has two kids, and that's it for the entire Hoffman, as far as the Albert Hoffman, the inventor of LSD-25 from Sandoz. And my great grandmother was captured by Nazis during the Holocaust, Third Reich of Switzerland, and she always tells that story about how she worked in Manhattan for about 40 years, and before when she was retiring from that, she invested most of her money in the Trumps and the Hiltons, thinking that her grandkids and her kids would be secure from Grateful Dead money, and eventually get the riches of LSD-25 profits, or something similar. That her quote unquote brother was filthy rich, and the Hoffman family in Switzerland is probably still filthy rich today. Well, I sit in a sort of a third of boxcar, living on monetary fiscal sources such as a hobo, EBT, and 771 a month from the federal United States Department of Treasury checks. Meanwhile, 725 a month goes to rent. So there's that, and boxing, 775 fights, and still alive, still today, in the military underground boxing ring of the D-Days, the WW3s from the ass end of 2002, perhaps the August 2003, until last year, I think was my last fight. If I would even be in the know, as if that ever happened. They wanted to give me about 800 confirmed kills in 2 decades. It was the EST, with my next identification being issued in 2022. So they were really trying to play into. I played my part, and I waved that flag high and proud, and they wanted to reimburse me or